Chapter 5. Baba's return with Chand Patel's marriage party, welcomed and addressed as Sai. Contact with other saints, his attire and daily routine, the story of the Padukas, wrestling bout with Mohidin and change in life, returning water into oil, the pseudo-guru Jawhar Ali. Return with Chand Patel's marriage party. As hinted in the last chapter, I shall now describe first how Sai Baba returned to Shirdi after his disappearance. There lived in Aurangabad district, Nizam state, in a village called Dup, a well-to-do Mohammedan gentleman named Chand Patel. While he was making a trip to Aurangabad, he lost his mare. For 2 long months he made a diligent search but could get no trace of the lost mare. After being disappointed and returning from Aurangabad with a saddle on his back, after travelling 4 kos and a half, he came on the way to a mango tree under the foot of which sat a fakir, a queer fellow. He had a cap on his head, wore kafni, long robe, and a satka short stick was under his arm, and he was preparing to smoke chilam, a pipe. On seeing Chand Patel pass by the way, he called out to him and asked him to have a smoke and to rest a little. The queer fellow or fakir asked him about the saddle. Chand Patel replied that it was of his mare, which he lost some time back. The fakir asked him to make a search in the nullah close by. He went, and wonder of wonders, he found the mare there. He thought that this fakir was not an ordinary man, but a avaliya, a great saint. He returned to the fakir with the mare. The chilam was ready for being smoked, but 2 things were wanting. 1, fire to light the pipe, and 2, water to wet the chapai, the piece of cloth through which smoke was drawn up. The fakir took his prong and thrust it forcibly into the ground, and out came a live ember, which he put in the pipe. Then he dashed the satka on the ground, from where water began to ooze. The chapai was wetted with the water, and when wrung out and wrapped around the pipe. Thus, everything being complete, the fakir smoked the chilam and then gave it also to Chand Patel. On seeing all this, Chand Patel was wonderstruck. He requested the fakir to come to his home and accept his hospitality. The next day, he went to Patel's house and stayed there for some time. Patel was the village officer of Dup. His wife's brother's son was to be married, and the bride was from Shirdi. So Patel made preparations to start for Shirdi for the marriage. The fakir also accompanied the marriage party. The marriage went off without any hitch. The party returned to Dup, except the fakir, who stayed back in Shirdi and remained there forever. How the fakir got the name Sai. When the marriage party came to Shirdi, it alighted at the foot of the banyan tree in Bhagat Mahasapati's field, near Khandoba's temple. The carts were loosened in the open courtyard of Khandoba's temple, and the members of the party descended one by one, and the fakir also got down. Bhagat Mahasapati saw the young fakir get down and accosted him. "Ya Sai, welcome Sai." Others also addressed him as Sai, and thenceforth he became Sai Baba. Contact with other saints. Sai Baba began to stay in the deserted masjid. One saint named Devidas was living in Shirdi for many years before Baba came there. Baba liked his company. He stayed with him in the Maruti temple in the Chawadi, and sometime lived alone. Then came another saint by the name Janaki Das. Baba spent most of the time in talking with him or Janaki Das, and went to Baba's residence. So also, one Vaishya householder saint from Putambe by name Gangagir always frequented Shirdi. When he first saw Sai Baba carrying pitchers of water in both hands for watering the garden, he was amazed and said openly, "Blessed is Shirdi, for he has got this precious jewel. This man is carrying water today, but he is no ordinary fellow. As this land Shirdi was fortunate and meritorious, it secured this jewel." So also one famous saint by name Anandanath of Yewala Mat, a disciple of Akalkot Maharaj, came to Shirdi with some people. When he saw Sai Baba, he said openly, "This is a precious diamond in reality. Though he looks like an ordinary man, he is not an ordinary stone, but a diamond. You will realize this in the near future." Saying this, he returned to Yewala. This was said while Sai Baba was a youngster. Baba's dress and daily routine. In his young days, Baba grew hair on his head, never had his head shaved. He dressed like an athlete. When he went to Rahata, 3 miles from Shirdi, he brought with him small plants of marigold, jay and jew, and after cleaning them, he planted and watered them. A devotee by name Vamantatir supplied him daily with 2 unbaked earthen pitchers. With these, Baba himself used to water the plants. He drew water from the well and carried the pitchers on his shoulders. In the evening, the pitchers were kept at the foot of the neem tree. As soon as they were placed there, they were broken, and as they were made of raw earth and not baked. Next day, Tatir supplied 2 fresh pitchers. This course went on for 3 years, and with Sai Baba's toil and effort, there grew a garden. On this site at present stands a big mansion, Samadhi Mandir of Baba, which is now frequented and used by so many devotees. The story of the Padukas, footprints under the neem tree. A devotee of Akkalkot Maharaj by name Bhai Krishnaji Ali Badka worshipped the photo of Akkalkot Maharaj. He once thought of going to Akkalkot, Solapur district, to take the darshan of the Padukas, the footprints of the Maharaj, and offered his sincere prayer there. But before he could go there, he got a vision in his dream. Akkalkot Maharaj appeared in the vision and said to him, "Now Shirdi is my resting place. Go there and offer your worship." So Bhai changed his plan and came to Shirdi, worshipped Baba, and stayed there for 6 months and was happy. As a reminiscence of this vision, etc., he prepared the Padukas and installed them on the auspicious day of Shravan Shakar 1834, which is 1912 AD, under the neem tree, with due ceremonies and formalities, conducted by Dadakelka and Upasani. One Dixit Brahman was appointed for worship, and the management was entrusted to the devotee Sagun. Complete version of this story. Mr. B.V. Dev, retired Mamlata of Thana, was a great devotee of Sai Baba. He made inquiries about this matter with Sagun Meru Naik and Govind Kamalka Dikshit, and has published a full version of the Padukas in Sai Leela, Volume 2, Number 1, page 25. It runs as follows. In 1912, one doctor, Ramarao Kotara of Mumbai, came to Shirdi for Baba's darshan. His compounder and his friend, Bhai Krishnaji Ali Badka, accompanied him. The compounder and Bhai became intimate with Sagun Meru Naik and G.K. Dikshit. While discussing things, the persons thought that there must be some memorial of Sai Baba's first advent at Shirdi, and sitting under the holy neem tree. They thought of installing Baba's Padukas there, and were going to make them from some rough stone. Then Bhai's friend, the compounder, suggested that, if this matter was made known to his master, Dr. Ramarao Kotara, he would prepare nice Padukas for this purpose. All liked this proposal, and Dr. Kotara was informed of it. He came to Shirdi and drew a plan for the Padukas. He went to Upasani Maharaj in Khandoba's temple and showed him his plan. The latter made many improvements, drew lotus, flowers, conch, disc, mace, etc., and suggested that the following shloka verse regarding the neem tree's greatness and Sai Baba's yogic powers be inscribed. The verse was as follows: Sada Nimba Vrikshasya Mula Diwasat Sudastravinam Tiktama Piya Priyamtam Tarum Kalpa Vrikshadikam Sadyanantam Namameshwaram Sadgurum Sainatam. Upasani's suggestions were accepted and carried out. The Padukas were made in Mumbai and sent to Shirdi with the compounder. Baba said that they should be installed on the Purnima, 15th of Shravan. On that day at 11 a.m., G.K. Dikshit brought them on his head from the Khandoba's temple to the Dwarkamai, the masjid, in the procession. Baba touched the Padukas, saying that these are the feet of the Lord, and asked the people to install them under the foot of the neem tree. A day before, one Parsi devotee of Mumbai named Parthashet sent 25 rupees by money order. Baba gave this sum for the installation of the Padukas. The total expense of installation came to 100 rupees, out of which 75 were collected by subscriptions. For the first 5 years, G.K. Dikshit worshipped the Padukas daily, and then this was done by Lakshman Kacheshwar Jakadi in the first 5 years. Dr. Katare spent 2 rupees per month for lighting lamp, and he also sent the railing round the Padukas. The expense for bringing the railing from the station to Shirdi was 7 rupees 8 annas, presently 7.5 rupees. And roofing was paid by Sagun Meru Naik. Now, Nana Pujari does the worship, and Sagun Meru Naik offers Naividya and lights the evening lamps. Bhai Krishnaji was originally a devotee of Akkalkot Maharaj. He came to Shirdi on the installation of the Padukas in Shaka 1834 on his way to Akkalkot, which is 1912. He wanted to go to Akkalkot after taking the darshan of Baba. He asked Baba's permission for this. Baba said, "Oh, what is there in Akkalkot? Why do you go there? The Maharaj of that place is here, myself." Hearing this, Bhai did not go to Akkalkot. He came to Shirdi off and on after the installation of the Padukas. Mr. B.V. Dev concluded that Hemapant did not know these details. Had he known them, he would not have failed to depict them in his Satcharitra. Wrestling bout with Mohidin Tamboli and change in lifestyle. To return to other stories of Baba, there was a wrestler in Shirdi by name Mohidin Tamboli. Baba and he did not agree on some points, and both had a fight. In this Baba was defeated. Thenceforth Baba changed his dress and mode of living. He donned a kofni, wore a langot waistband, and covered his head with a piece of cloth. He took a piece of sackcloth for his bed, and was content with wearing torn and worn-out rags. He always said that poverty is better than kingship, far better than lordship. The Lord was always brother, a befriender of the poor. Gangagir was also very fond of wrestling. While he was once wrestling, a similar feeling of dispassion descended over him, and at that proper time he heard the voice of an adept saying that he should wear out his body playing with God. So he too gave up sansara and turned towards God realization. He established a mutt on the banks of the river near Putambe and lived there with his disciples. Sai Baba did not mix and speak with the people. He only gave answers when he was questioned. By day he always sat under the neem tree, sometimes under the shade of the babul tree near the stream at the outskirts of the village. In the afternoon he used to walk at random and go at times to Nimagaon. There he frequented the house of Bala Saheb Dengle. Baba loved Mr. Bala Saheb. His younger brother, named Nana Saheb, had no son, though he married a second wife. Bala Saheb sent Nana Saheb for taking darshan of Sai Baba, and after some time with his grace Nana Saheb got a son. From that time onwards people began to come in numbers to see Sai Baba, and his fame began to spread and reach Ahmednagar. From thence Nana Saheb Chandoka and Keshav Chiramba and many devotees began to come to Shirdi. Baba was surrounded by his devotees during the day and slept at night in the old dilapidated masjid. Baba's paraphernalia at this time consisted of a chillum, tobacco, a timrul tin pot, long kafni, a piece of cloth around his head, and a satka short stick, which he always kept with him. The piece of white cloth on his head was twisted like matted hair, and flowed down from the left ear on the back. This was not washed for weeks, and he wore no shoes, no sandals. A piece of sackcloth was his seat for most of the day. He wore a korpin waistband cloth, and for warding off cold, he always sat in front of the duni, a sacred fire, facing south, with his left hand resting on the wooden railing. In that duni he offered an oblation of egoism, desires, and always uttered Allah Malik, God is the sole owner. The masjid in which he sat was only for two-room dimensions, where all devotees came and saw him. After 1912 there was a change. The old masjid was repaired and the pavement was constructed. Before Baba came and lived in the masjid, he lived for a long time in a place, Takia, where, with ganguru, small bells tied on his ankles, Baba danced beautifully and sang with tender love. Turning water into oil. Sai Baba was very fond of lights. He used to borrow oil from the shopkeepers and keep lamps burning the whole night in the masjid and temple. He went on for some time. The bunnias who supplied oil, great this, once met together and decided not to give him oil. When, as usual, Baba went to ask for oil, they all gave him a distinct no. Unperturbed, Baba returned to the masjid and kept the dry wicks in the lamps. The bunnias were watching him with curiosity. Baba took the tumaro tin pot, which contained very little, a few drops of oil, put water in it and drank it, and then forced it to fall in the container. After consecrating the tin pot in this way, he again took the water from the tin pot and filled all the lamps with it and lighted them. To the surprise and dismay of the watching bunnias, the lamps began to burn and kept burning the whole night. The bunnias repented and apologized, and Baba forgave them and asked them to be more truthful in future. The pseudo-guru Jawahar Ali. 5 years after the wrestling bout of the above mentioned, one fakir from Ahmednagar by name Jawahar Ali came to Rahata with his disciples and stayed in Bakal's spacious room near the Veerbhadra temple. The fakir was learned, could repeat the whole Quran, and had sweet tongue. Many religious and devout people of the village came to him and began to respect him. With the help of the people, he started to build an Idgah, as a walled enclosure in which Mohammedans pray on Eid Day, near the Veerbhadra temple. There was some quarrel about this affair, on account of which Jawahar Ali had to leave Rahata. Then he came to Shirdi and lived in the masjid with Baba. People were captured by his sweet talk, and he began to call Baba his disciple. Baba did not object to and consented to be his chela. Then both Guru and Chela decided to return to Rahata and live there. The Guru, the teacher, never knew the disciple's worth, but the disciple knew the shortcomings of the Guru. Still, he never disrespected him, observed carefully his duties. He even served his master in various ways. They used to come to Shirdi off and on, but their mainstay was in Rahata. The loving devotees of Baba in Shirdi did not like that Baba should stay away from them in Rahata, so they went in a deputation to bring Baba back to Shirdi. When they met Baba near the Idgah and told him the purpose for which they came, Baba said to them that the fakir was an angry, ill-tempered fellow. He would not leave him, and that they should better go back to Shirdi without him before the fakir returned. While they were thus talking, the fakir turned up and was very angry with them for trying to take away his disciple. There was some hot discussion and altercation, and it was finally decided that both the Guru and the Chela should return to Shirdi. And so they returned and lived in Shirdi. But after a few days, the Guru was tested by Devidas and was found wanting. 12 years before Baba arrived in Shirdi with the marriage party, this Devidas, aged about 10 or 11 years, came to Shirdi and lived in the Maruti temple. Devidas had fine features and brilliant eyes, and he was dispassion incarnate and a dhyani. Many persons, namely Tatya Kote, Kashinath, and others, regarded him as their guru. They brought Jawahar Ali in his presence, and in the discussion that followed, Jawahar was worsted and fled from Shirdi. He went and stayed in Bijapur and returned after many years to Shirdi and prostrated himself before Sai Baba. The delusion that he was the Guru and Sai Baba his Chela was cleared away, and as he repented, Sai Baba treated him with respect. In this case, Sai Baba showed his conduct how one should get rid of egoism and do the duties of a disciple and attain the highest end, namely self-realization. This story is told here according to the version given by Maha Samadhi, a great devotee of Baba. In the next chapter, we will describe the Ramnami festival, the masjid, the former condition, and the later improvements in it, etc. Gaudiya Sri Sai, peace be to all. Sri Satchitananda Sadguru Sai Nath Maharaj Ki Jai.